Bava Batra, Daf Kuf Mem Omid Beis. So how many genders are there? Tumtum Beryahu. Seems like a strange question to be asking in a shir, but it's not a simple question, even in halakha. We assume that there are just two genders, male and female. But the halakha deals with an additional two gender statuses. The one is androgynous, which we're not going to be dealing with today. And androgynous is a person who has both male and female genitals. And then we have a tumtum, who is either male or female, but the genitals are covered up. They're covered with membrane, with skin, and they can't be seen. So there's not clarity as to whether the person is a male or a female. That's called a tumtum. Both of them are very rare cases. The case of a tumtum, sometimes it occurs that later, through surgery or other means, we're able to discover whether it's a male or a female. But during the time that we're in doubt, the person has the status of a tumtum. Our Mishnah is one of the places where the status of a tumtum is discussed, and where there seems to be a machlokes as to whether a tumtum is a safek zochar, safek nekeva. We don't know whether it's a male or a female, so we have to treat this individual in a particular way, or whether it's a barrier, whether this is a third gender. There's a zochar and there's a nekeva and there's a tumtum. And the tumtum has a different status. So in any event, it's already interesting to see that there is space, at least in the theoretical conversations of the Gemara, for genders beyond male and female. We're not talking about gender identity. We're not talking about a person waking up one morning and saying, I feel like a boy or I feel like a girl. We're talking about physiology. But together with the physiology comes all the hormonal and the emotional aspects of it as well. So there are these people, there are these individuals who don't clearly fit into either category. But that at least is acknowledged by the halacha. The problem with the gender conversation is that we don't distinguish between the physiological construct, is this a male or a female, and the social construct. Is this person living as a male or a female? And when you separate it out, it becomes an easier conversation to have and to understand. And we'll see this in a brilliant piece of the Tosfos Reed. I've spoken to you before about the Tosfos Reed. He was the Italian school, the Tosfos Reed. This is 13th century. Tosfos Reed went to Germany, learned together with the Balei Tosfos. He was a chavrusa of the Or Zarua, with whom he remained close all his life. And the Tosfos Reed, I've said to you, the Italian school is just so innovative. We've talked often about how the culture of the atmosphere, almost the culture of the country, seems to have some bearing on the style of the Rishonim from those countries. The German style as opposed to the French style, the style in Provence and the south of France, which we've talked about as also being very forward-thinking and innovative in the way it operates. Not that it would ever operate outside anything but strict halachic formulation, but nevertheless, there's always a lens, there's always a way of looking at the world that comes with the nation, the area in which you live, in which you're raised. And the Italians are just so beautifully innovative, as was the Tosfos Reed. But in addition to being innovative, the Tosfos Reed was one of the greats. The Maram Rutenberg, who himself is a Rishon, writes that there are some Rishonim you would be foolish to argue with. The Rambam, firstly, Rabbeinu Gershom, who we've talked about often, the Rambam, the Rif, and the Rid, Rabbeinu Yeshaya Mitrani. So we're talking about somebody who not only is enormously innovative and progressive in his thinking, so to say, but who's also just an absolute pillar of the development of Psach through the time of the Rishonim. So let's have a look at and see. The case of the Mishnah is, a person leaves children, sons, daughters, and a tumtum. We're in the 9th parak of Bava Batra now, and the first Mishnah on the previous daf talks about the fact that if a man leaves a large estate, the sons inherit the estate and they support the daughters from that estate. If the estate is small, the estate supports the daughters and the sons get nothing. What happens if he left sons, daughters, and a tumtum? And here already the Rashbam tells us what is a tumtum. Atum, closed up, Eno nikar bo lo zachrut velo nikvut. There is no empirical evidence of him being either a male or a female. V'sofek zocha sofek nekevahu, and he's a doubt. We don't know whether he's a male or a female. Ve'ikilaman da'amar, as the Bach corrects it, lav safeku ela beriyahu. And there is a view, as we'll see as the Gemara develops, there is a view, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel in the Mishnah, according to Abaya, that there is a view that this is a beria, this is a new gender, that is neither male nor female. So he leaves it sons and daughters and tumtums. When there's a lot of money, the money goes to the boys and the girls are supported. The tumtum comes and says, I'm a boy. I identify as a male. I want to be part of the boys. They say, go, we identify you as a female. Go to the girls, you can be, we'll support you, you're getting nothing of the capital. So he goes to the girls. In the Chosim Mu'atim, in a case where there's only a little bit of money left. So he says, now I'm a girl. Now I identify as a girl. I want to be supported. There's not enough money for capital inheritance, but I want support. And the girls say, we don't see you as one of us. We see you as a boy. Boys are getting nothing. You get nothing easy. That's case number one. Case number two, a man says, if my wife is going to have a son, I'm going to give him 100. If she's going to have a girl, I'm going to give her 200. And then it goes, a son is born, or a girl is born, Yalda Tumtum. What happens if she has a Tumtum? No, till he gets nothing, because he's not a Zachar, he's not a Nekeva. An important piece of the Mishnah. If there is no heir other than the Tumtum, do we say it goes now to the father and the father's brothers and sons, and it will go to the uncles, the nephews, or does it go to the tumtum? Yoreshet Hakol, the tumtum inherits everything. And that's where the difficulty in the Mishnah comes. Comes by the Gemara and says, Tochinoto v'shakil kabat. When it says the boys can push him aside and say, you're a girl, does that mean he can then go to the girls and be one of them? Haktani Sefer Yalda Tumtum Ein Notel. But in the second part of the Mishnah, it says when a man says, if my wife has a boy, he'll get 100. If she has a girl, she'll get 200. She has a tumtum, he gets nothing. So you see, he's neither boy nor girl. No, the first part of the Mishnah means he gets nothing. He's not a boy, he's not a girl, he gets nothing. The whole Mishnah is like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, as the Rashbam explains, and this tumtum is considered like a different barrier. Says the Rashbam, Amar Abaya dochinoto etzon nekevot ve'ein loim nekevot shegam ein yitchu etzel zacharim. The girls also say, you're not one of us. This is the tragedy of not fitting into either category. Each one regards you as one of the others, and it becomes very difficult. The Rosh says an amazing thing. In the Tosfos HaRosh brought in the Shita Mukubetzet, based on this line in the Mishnah, Im ein sham yoresh elahu yoresh et hakol. So this tumtum, who is neither boy nor girl, can inherit everything of the father's estate, provided there are no other sons and daughters. Mikan yesh lochiach de tumtum poter min hayibum afilu im havi beria. Says the Rosh, even if we hold like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, that a tumtum is a third gender, he frees the mother from Yibum. So a man dies, he has no sons, he has no daughters, he has a tumtum. Does he need Yibum or doesn't he? Does he need Chalitza or doesn't he? What's the din? Says the Rosh, she does not need Chalitza. Why? Our Mishnah says if there's no Yoresh, there's no heir other than he gets everything. We know the laws of Yibum follow the laws of Yerusha to some degree, and therefore, le'inyan Yibum nami ki hadadi ninu. The same will apply by Yibum. He will be treated like a son or daughter, and she won't need Yibum. And it's interesting because if the idea of Yibum is to continue, as we learned a couple of days ago, if the idea of Yibum is to continue what the father had started, what the deceased had started, the deceased had started building a family. And if he doesn't have any children, that work is interrupted in the middle. So the brother finishes the job, helps him finish the job and create a family. But if he's got a son and daughter, then he's fulfilled his desires. He's built his family. There is continuity. But a tumtum, there's no continuity. The tumtum can't have children. So why does it help? Says the Rosh doesn't explain it. He just says, but you see from Yoresh et Hakol that he's considered a Yoresh. But if you see the Piskei Harid, if you see the Tosfos Rid, you'll understand the Rosh. Tosfos Rid is 100 years before the Rosh. Says the Tosfos Rid, Avavada im ein sham yoresh elahu yoresh et hakol, Telegabi Yerusha lo ketiv zacharu nekeva ela ben or bat. Says the Tosfos read, there's a difference between male and female and son and daughter. And what does it say in the case of Yerusha? You'll see the posuk on the next page. Ve'al bnei Yisrael tadaber leimor, ish ki yamut. It doesn't say uvein ein lo. It says uvein ein lo. It doesn't say v'zachar ein lo. V'avatim et nachlato levito. Then the girl gets it. If there's no son or there's no daughter, then it goes back to the father, and so on. Says the Targum Yonason, uvir dechar letle. Of course, it's talking about a male son. Uvein ein lo, meaning he doesn't have a male son. But look what the Targum Onkelos says, and how careful the Targum Onkelos is, and how precise the Targum Onkelos is. Uvar letle, he does not say uvir dechar letle. He doesn't use the word male, because we're not talking about male and female, we're talking about son and daughter. So what is this distinction that the Tosfos read is making between son and daughter and male and female? Isn't a son a male and a daughter is a female? But there's a difference. When you talk about a male and a female, you're talking about physiological differences where each is capable of showing empirical evidence that they are male or female. When you talk about a son or daughter, you're talking about a social construct. You're talking about a family, about a relationship between a father and a son, a relationship between a father and a daughter. You're not talking about the physiology. So where there's an issue of impinging on the rights of another person, there it's got to be zachar and nekeva. You've got to prove. You can't impinge on the rights of the girls because you identify as a girl. If you want to impinge on the rights of the girls, you've got to show us that you're a girl. If you're unable to show us that you're a girl, then you can't claim from the rights of the girl. But if it's just about whether you consider yourself a son or a daughter, you're at home and you want to be daddy's little girl, although you're a little boy, so you be daddy's little girl. Who cares? Be what you want. It doesn't make a difference. You're not hurting anybody. You're not bothering anybody. You're not claiming from anybody. Now you're daddy's little girl, and so you want to go and compete with the girls in sports because your daddy says I'm a girl and I say I'm a girl. We say, okay, prove it. You want to compete with the girls, you have to prove it. How do you prove it? There's only one way to prove it. That's physiologically. Were you born with male genitals or were you born with female? That's the only way you can prove it according to halacha. If you can't prove it, you can't deprive somebody else of their rights. You can't impinge on the rights of another person. In terms of the home, be what you want. So if there are sons, let's say there are daughters, and you want to claim that you're a son, now that you would have to prove because you want to take the inheritance away from the girls and you want to take it as the only son. That's impinging on the girls. You would have to prove that you're a son. You would have to prove that you're male. But if there are no girls and there are no other sons, there's just you. It doesn't matter. You certainly, says the Tosfos, Vade or Ben or Batu, you're certainly a Ben or Bat, you're a son or a daughter. You are the offspring of the parent. Who cares if you're a son or a daughter? In this case, it makes no difference. So where it makes no difference to anybody else, be what you want. Who cares? The only problem is when it does start impinging on other people. It's so amazing what he says, because I struggle with that a little bit, thinking if you hold it as a barrier, as the Rashbam learns seems to be learning, and I'll show you that that's possibly not how he's learning, that is a barrier, that he's a new gender, a gender all of his own. In that case, why should he even inherit? He's neither a son nor a daughter. Imagine, theoretically, if a woman gave birth to a puppy. Maybe nowadays, with the way people treat their pets, it's going to happen. But so far, it hasn't happened as far as I know. But imagine a woman gives birth, she has artificial insemination with her pet, and she gives birth to a puppy. What are we going to say? The puppy has rights to inherit? You're not a ben or a bat. So if a tumtum is a barrier, if a tumtum is something else altogether, how does he inherit? So we've got to redefine what the Gemara means, what Abaye means, what Rabbi Shimon and Gamliel means when they talk about a barrier. Does it really mean this is a third gender? And I would argue it doesn't mean that it's a third gender. Look at the Rav on the Mishnah. The Rav on the Mishnah says, "Azcharim dochin oto etzal hanekevot, de amrile aiti raya de zacharat v'shaku." You want our money, you're a motzi mechavero. You've got to bring proof. Bring proof, and you can take. So she goes to the men. If you want us to support you, bring a proof that you're a girl. It's a motzi mechaver alai. We're in doubt, and And if you want to take from us, you want to impinge on our rights, you have to bring empirical evidence. You've got to bring us evidence that this is so. And since neither one, he can't bring evidence for either side, he gets nothing at all. He doesn't fall anywhere because of lack of evidence, not because he's a new barrier. We treat him like a new barrier because he doesn't have evidence. And you'll see it even in the words of the Rashbam. When the Rashbam says, Omar Abaya dochinoto etzon the kevot ve'ein lo iman the kevot. We push him to the girls and he can't even inherit with the girls. Shegam hein yidchu etzel zacharim. Because they'll push him back to the boys. And the only way he can get out of being pushed backwards and forwards is to bring some evidence, and he has no evidence. That's why he's barrier. He's a barrier because he has no evidence. He's not a barrier because there's a third gender. So we come back to the original premise. There are only two genders. There is, leaving the androgynous aside, as far as the tumtum is concerned, there are only two genders. And then there's a tumtum. A tumtum is a person who can't prove whether he's a son, a boy, or whether he's a girl. In such a case, where it's just a social issue, like Yerusha, are you your father's child or not? Be who you want to be, it doesn't make any difference. Leaving aside the Yisurim of Lo Yilbash, of men not dressing like women, women not dressing like men, leaving that aside, you want to act like a little girl, be a little girl. You want to act like a little boy, be a little boy. Who cares? But when it comes to impinging on the rights of others, you want to use the restrooms of a certain gender, you want to compete in the sports of a certain gender, you want to claim an inheritance that only goes to a certain gender. In that case, you would have to prove. Since you can't prove, we have to treat you like a barrier, although there are only two genders. In this case, we have to treat you from a legal perspective as being neither one nor the other, and you wouldn't be able to get the advantages of either.